We are studying the letter of James to the early Christian church. I trust and pray by now that you realize that James is really talking not only to the Christian church, but to the believer out there who has made certain assumptions about following Christ that may not be right. Today we're going to talk about one particular verse, verse 12 of chapter 5 of James, talking about allowing your word to stand on its own. For he says, "But above all, my brothers, do not swear, either by heaven, or by earth, or by any other oath, but let your yes be yes, and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation." Well, James is really reflecting words from Jesus as Jesus spoke on the Sermon on the Mount about allowing your word to be truthful at all times, under all circumstances, in all occasions. Jesus said in Matthew 5 verses 33 through 37, "Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'Do not break your oath, but keep the oaths that you have made to the Lord.' But I tell you," Jesus said, "do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. Simply let your yes be yes, and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one." Well, we know that there were two different types of practices that were concerning oaths, and unfortunately in the day of Jesus and James it came out in a certain form and fashion. The first type of oath in the Jewish world, certain oaths were binding while other oaths were not. Any oath that used the name of God was considered binding, while any oath that did not use the specific name of God was not binding. Of course, the idea was that when God's name was used, he became a partner in the transaction. And people began finding oaths that did not specifically refer to God so as not to be binding. Well, when Jesus was really scourging the Pharisees, the hypocrites, the leaders of the Jews, in the 23rd chapter of Matthew, Jesus was saying that you have become blind guides. He says, you swear an oath by the temple that's not binding, but by the gold on the temple that is binding. Or you swear an oath by the altar that is not binding, but by the gift on the altar that is binding. And Jesus says, you're blind guides, you're hypocrites. The Bible is trying to help us to understand that as true believers, we don't need to reflect what the world's viewpoint is on a person's word. We have this idea that our word can possibly not be true if we give it certain exceptions. Well, let your truth be true. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. The second type of oath was the extraordinary amount of oaths that were taken in that day and age. Oaths became common and were no longer respected. It became known that if a man needed an oath to tell the truth, that he was already branded as untrustworthy. We've seen this. You hear people preface their remarks by saying, you know, I want to tell you the truth, or I want to be truthful with you. And your first thought is, well, does that mean that they haven't been truthful up to this point? And so we often use oaths. Some people will say, well, I swear by my mother's grave, I swear to God, I swear by something else, and we wonder, does that give it credibility? Is there credence there? And we're always questioning, is this person, male or female, been really truthful to me up until this point? Well, the answer in many cases would be no, not really. If someone has to preface a statement by saying, well, I really want to be truthful with you, or I have to be honest with you at this point. Well, we're led to believe that they haven't been honest up until that point. So what James is trying to encourage us as believers, to let everything that we say to be true, to be truthful. We don't have to preface it with any remarks. We don't have to preface it with anything else. We just let our yes be yes and our no, no. Unfortunately, to the Christian church today, anywhere in the world, oftentimes Christians are no better off at telling the truth than non-believers themselves. And so when a non-Christian's word is not true, then we're held under the same stipulations as the unbelievers. You know, we're only truthful if proven that to be so. So we ought to take the higher standard as believers in Jesus Christ. We do not need the strength of an oath to reinforce the truth. We ought to be the kind of people that allow the truth to be told all the time, no exceptions. Now, one other thing that I want to mention. There's always that group or that thought that says, therefore, a person shouldn't give an oath under the court system in America. Well, let's talk about that. He's not condemning that particular procedure in this admonition. And the reason I say that, because in the 23rd chapter or 26th chapter of Matthew, Jesus evidently was under oath when he appeared before the Sanhedrin in his last appearance to the Sanhedrin. And they were challenging him. They said, under oath, are you saying that you are the Son of God? He said, I am. You're right. And one day you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the throne of God. And so here we have the situation where under the legal system, unfortunately a lot of court systems don't use the Bible to swear witness in anymore, but under the normal procedure here, I don't think James is prohibiting that practice. What I do think James is telling us as believers, and I can't be any stronger than this, to allow your word to be just that. If you give a vow to somebody, if you make a promise to somebody, if you tell somebody that you're going to do something, then as a true follower of Jesus Christ, let your yes be yes. If you tell somebody no, then abide by that. Let your no be no. Let that individual, whether they're a believer or an unbeliever, come to you knowing that your word is going to be truthful. Whatever it is, at any juncture in time, at any place or circumstance, under anything. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. I pray that you have a fantastic day in the Lord. Have a good one.